Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of WCM Fireside Chats. My name is Brian Searl, here with my co-host, Mr. Ben Quiggle from Woodall's Campground Management. We are missing Cara Braeutigam this morning. She's a little bit running late, and so we're going to see if we can add her in a little bit later during the show as well. But we've got a really exciting topic for you today, focused on agritourism. It's part 2 in our series, talking about farm stays. Ben, tell them a little bit more about what we're going to discuss today.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the boys for right now until Cara shows up. So you guys will just have to deal with Brian and I. But
the show's not going to be as good for sure, but we'll try to get through it, yeah.
So, I mean, I was pretty excited about this topic. I think a couple of weeks ago, we came up with the idea to feature more agritourism stuff, and we talked about wineries a couple of weeks ago, and I was pretty excited about today, too. We're going to be taking a look at campgrounds and other places like campgrounds that kind of feature, farm experiences. So we have a couple guests on here that are going to talk to us about that. Jerry Ayers from Lazy Llama Campground in Tennessee, Chuckey, Tennessee. They actually raise llamas on a farm near the campground. I guess, Jerry, just tell us a little bit about what you do at the campground and how campers get experiences with your llamas that you raise.
Well, first of all, there was a dilapidated trailer park beside us for many, many years, and from the 60s, and we purchased it and demolished all of the mobile homes, and then we turned it into a campground, and it's attached to our farm, so it was a perfect dovetail into agritourism, which we already have done since 2005. And we have about a 50 head herd of llamas. We raise about 15 a year. So the campers, when they come in, most of the campsites can see or are right next to the pastures. So they get to actually go out and see the llamas. On Saturdays, we do free wagon rides for the campers. We can hold about 25 at a time. Of course, COVID, we've done a little more social distancing with that. Take more rides, but they get to go through the campground and end up at the barn where they get off of the wagon, and they get to pet and experience the llamas up close. We also halter the llamas up, and they get to walk the llama and get real close. So it's pretty cool. And we also have a garden, a large box garden that they get free vegetables out of, and we have a chicken coop that they get to gather eggs for breakfast. So they get really involved into the campground and the farm while they're here.
Yeah, well, that sounds great. Llamas are really nice animals. They do spit a lot, but they're pretty nice animals, soft fur, real neat animals to be next to. So, I guess our other guest is Scotty Jones. I met you, Scotty, at the Glamping Show USA a couple years ago, and you kind of stuck with me just because I thought your idea was kind of a neat idea. She founded Farm Stay USA, which is, they offer farm and ranches opportunities to host like RVers. Some of them host RVers. Some of them have their own kind of like an Airbnb thing where they may have like a rental cabin or a house that they rent out, and they offer people the chance to stay at these locations and take part in chores and interact with animals and different things. I know some of them, I think you're working to get into the campground, get more campgrounds maybe that offer those experiences too, right, Scotty?
Sure. Yeah.
I guess.
Do you want me to explain? I'll explain a little bit what we do.
Yeah.
So, and how I got into it. We actually have our own farm, Leaping Lamb Farm, and we started offering lodging back in 2007 because we're a sheep farm, and raising sheep doesn't necessarily pay for the tractor to break down. So this is actually, farm stays are a concept from Europe. So Agritourism, they've been doing farm stays in France and England for a long time. Back in starting in the 1960s and 70s. And it's a newer concept in the U.S. So Ben, when I was at that glamping show, one of the interesting things is, because there are farmers there, is convincing them that actually people staying on your farm, people will pay you to do it. And they'll pay to camp, but they'll also pay to stay in your farmhouse or in your cottage or in your much more expensive glamping tent. And it's a way to diversify. I mean, and that's basically what the association is about. We're there to help. We're a trade association. And I formed that in 2010 because I realized that there was nothing like that in the US, that we could all be one thing. And I would say still 9 out of 10 people, if you say, you can go stay on a farm, it's called a farm stay, they have no idea that they would even want to do it. I mean, isn't it going to be dirty? And isn't it going to be boring? And are we going to make you work? You're paying money to stay with us, and now it's going to be slave labor. And so, but kind of like Jerry, I mean, we do the same thing. You can go collect the eggs if you want. We call it harvesting in our garden. You can go and pick vegetables and things like that in the summer when they're there for your meals. But you can also help us do chores, which is feeding the chickens, or right now lambing, helping me with the lambs. Helping just feed the sheep. We have a donkey that likes to be brushed. And so it's a kind of a hands-on, if you want to sit on the deck and read a good book and drink a glass of wine, hey, that's fine with us too. So during COVID, for a lot of people, it's been a relief. And Jerry, I'm sure, is experiencing this too. People just want to get out of their four corners in their house or their apartment and be somewhere where they can breathe and walk around and just relax.
Well, I know, I live in southern Michigan, which we're currently covered in about 3 to 4 inches of snow. But in our area, at least, people have been really active about getting more, doing more on their own, gardening, farming. They want to know where their food comes from. And I think this part of agritourism is just really being spurred maybe by some of that. These people who maybe don't have access to farms and different things like that want to do these experiences with their kids so that they can understand how farms work and where their food's coming from and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the funny thing, and I don't know if Jerry's found this in his garden, but there have been times when we actually need to go out into the garden and show people what the vegetables look like, because they'll bring in the leaves of the broccoli thinking that it's spinach, or they don't know what potatoes look like from the top and that they're underground, or even carrots. It's kind of amazing, since most grocery stores cut the tops off carrots.
Yeah, I just think
or they pick them green.
Yes.
Don't realize they have to mature and ripe.
Yeah.
I just think it's really neat to be able to offer people chances to stay at places like this. I guess at the llama camp, at your campground, Jerry, I guess how many sites do you offer, and do you do seasonals, or is it mainly just transient campers that stay at your park?
We do all, but we're a small campground. We only have 34. We're getting ready to expand another 4 sites. I just don't want it to be very big. We like for everything to be personal, and we can do that at this, at this level. And I don't know, it just all came together. Agritourism has been around a little while, but just like she said, people's not used to farms. Most people have never seen a chicken up close, much less a llama or a sheep or a goat. And so they're just so enamored with it. And we've got a green space where they can actually bring their dogs out, and their dogs will go nose to nose with my donkeys. I have miniature donkeys and miniature horse and 2 goats. Or the llamas. Of course, the llamas all line up, what are you doing here? And they're used to them now, but everybody wants selfies. They turn around and take all kinds of selfies of the farm animals with them. So, that works out great.
Does, Jerry, I guess, does your campground, is the farm the main attraction point to the campground, or do you guys offer like other, or is there other things in the area that people come to stay at your campground for?
Well, we're only an hour and a half from Gatlinburg Pigeon Forge,
Okay.
in the Great Smoky Mountains. So, but we're far enough out, not in the middle of nowhere, but far enough away from that area that it's not, real busy, touristy. So we're an hour and a half from Asheville, North Carolina, hour and a half from the Creeper Trail in Virginia, hour and a half from Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg. So a lot of people like to come to our place and just stay there as a base camp to do the different things. And some folks, back in the fall, we had somebody from Texas that came all the way from somewhere in Texas, and I figured they were coming through. We have a lot of folks coming through to other places, and they'll stay here. But I asked them, I said, well, where are you from? They said, Texas. I said, well, where are you headed after you leave here? Texas. They came that far just to see our little campground and farm, and that just amazed me.
Yeah.
Well, so that's an interesting thing, right, Ben? Do we have any data that shows, obviously, if you already own a campground, which is most of the people who are probably watching our show, you're not going to build a farm next to it necessarily, but it's easy to add a llama or an alpaca or a goat or chickens or some kind of an attraction there, right? And so is there any data or sense that you've gotten from people as to, does this increase interest if you just add the one piece instead of have the whole working farm? Or is there an incentive for people to do this, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm not for sure if I've ran. I do know that there are some campgrounds that will work with local farmers or, to do like petting zoos, kind of, where they'll bring in animals and offer, horse rides and maybe like a chance to pet animals. So there's that, but I'm not, I guess maybe Scotty or Jerry would have a better idea as to.
Well, I was going to do it a different way. And what I was going to say is there are more farms adding camping and campgrounds. So they may already have the lodging, but now they're adding either glamping sites or camping. And some are really getting into the adding RVs because that's easier. It's been an RV year, right? They may not have dump sites and things. I mean, we've had people ask us if they could bring an RV here. And I say, well, I've got an electrical hookup and I have a bathroom at the barn. So I wouldn't take lots. I could take, one. And it just really depends on the farm, on the state, what you're allowed to do. I was mentioning before we all went on, I'm not allowed to put a campground on my farm. I'm on something called exclusive farm use here in Oregon. And so you're not allowed to do things like that. But there would be other places where you absolutely are. And so we are hosting more and more farms that have all these different methods of staying on them. And like we mentioned before, coming out into the countryside, experiencing farm life seems to be a rising interest for Americans. It already was for Europeans. I mean, I get a lot of European, but they live here in the States, but they already know about farm stays.
The best thing to do is check your zoning laws in your particular state. Where we were fortunate is that the mobile home park that we tore down was already R2, which is heavy residential. And we were able, and guess what a campground is? Heavy residential. So it was a perfect fit, but our farm itself is agriculture. But they butt up against each other, and like I said, it dovetailed perfectly together. You asked me a question, I didn't finish it. We do seasonal, and we do extended stay. We don't do permanent. I don't want it to be the old saying, it was a trailer park before, it's not going to turn into a trailer park again. But we do seasonals. Matter of fact, I have a waiting list of about 12 to 14 for the spring, and we were full this winter. We have heated water lines, so that helps out a lot.
Scotty, I like, I was looking at your map on Farm Stay USA, and I mean, you have locations all across the U.S., so this isn't just this is something that's, seems to be interesting to people all across the country, I guess. It's not just in certain areas.
Yeah, no, it is. Although, did you notice there's a certain dearth of places to stay in the Midwest? So where the big commercial agricultural farms, the wheat and corn and things like that, there aren't as many farm stays being offered. And I don't know if that's because people are only one generation off the farm, so why would you want to go stay on a farm? But all up and down the seaboards, both east and west coast, down through Texas, and then up across the Midwest. Yeah, there are many more than these are our members. Before we launched our new website, we showed all the farm stays we could find around the country, and there are about 1,500.
Wow.
We're on a big membership drive this year because we think that we have the right message, but also, like Jerry said, a lot of us are full, and a lot of us are full for spring and getting full for summer. And I've had guests this winter, and who wants to be in Oregon in the rain, in the mud? Well, apparently, our barn is dry, and so I'm hoping we're on the upswing for farm stays in terms of people recognizing us.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine for the Midwest, where I live here in southern Michigan, Indiana, we interact a lot with the animals. They're all around us, country setting. So maybe that's hurting it a little. Although you would think they could draw people in from other areas that might want to come. Indiana's pretty flat, though, so I think people it's just really flat. So it's a nice place, but it's really flat. So I think this ties in really well to what we've been hearing on the glamping side of things, as far as people looking for those unique experiences. Glamping is partially kind of the unique accommodations that people stay in, but it also has a ton to do with the unique, the unique settings and the amenities and what's being offered. And I think, these farm stays and even like what Lazy Llama's Campground offered offers that, the unique attraction, I guess, to being able to touch and feel animals. So.
Well, the uniqueness, I better mention my wife. She's an artist. She's a fiber artist. She paints and draws, and she's a high school art teacher. She retires in May, so we're going to actually kick it up a notch with more classes. But people that camp here on Saturday mornings from 10 to 12, they get to go down to her studio and gather around, and she demonstrates spinning or weaving, and she actually gets them involved in it to see whether it's something they would like. The other thing we do is we do storytelling llama hikes on our farm, and so everyone gets their own llama to take with them and experience. And we're only 14 miles from the storytelling capital of the world in Jonesboro. And so storytelling is huge in this area. So obviously,
why is it the storytelling capital of the world?
Why
is it the storytelling capital?
Because they deemed it that way several years ago. It's called Jonesboro, Tennessee, and it's in the fall. They have a storytelling festival that brings people from all over the world. Over 10,000 people descend on this little town called Jonesboro, Tennessee. And of course, we fill up because people, camp and then go up to the festival. And it's storytelling. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
I guess more places than just there. So I was just curious.
And I think something that Jerry didn't mention, but I bet it's absolutely true where he is, where we are, and it's something that a lot of guests will mention is dark nights, starry nights.
Yes.
So most people get to see, if it's a clear night here, they get to see the Milky Way. When we moved here in 2003, I hadn't seen the Milky Way since I was a kid. We moved here from a big city. And to be able to just see that, or to hear the frogs, or, if it doesn't totally freak them out because it's so dark out here, you're just in the presence of nature. And I think that is something that is awe-inspiring for a lot of people. And yes, walking with a llama or milking a goat. I mean, everybody wants to try to milk something until they find out how hard it is.
Yes.
So we kept a goat in milk last year. And then I finally gave up because I was like, okay, I'm not going to keep milking this goat twice a day just because people try it for 15 seconds and then it's too hard. But at least they all tried.
My grandparents owned a small farm. They had about 10, 15 cows, dairy cattle, and my grandpa would have no problem milking it by hand, but it is not easy. So something you've got to learn how to do. So
if you think a goat is hard, try to milk a llama.
I didn't know you could milk a llama.
The teat's about that long.
Well, so I think we hit on something here, right? That's we've talked about in our different agritourism series. We talked about in glamping. It's that niche market, the ability to set your campground or your accommodations apart from someone else from a marketing standpoint. Really, is all it is. Just like the guy drove up from Texas to see Gary's place. It's something that you can't get anywhere else, or at least anywhere else with the radius that someone's willing to drive or can drive, or those kinds of things. And so. For farm stay specifically, if that's, adding a campground to your farm or vice versa, we have some clients that have added goats or have goats, do petting zoos that have chickens that do things like that, that complement Easter egg hunts and all kinds of things. And so it's just setting yourself apart in that way that differentiates yourself from your competition, that enables you to attract more people that you otherwise would not attract.
Yeah. If people would think more of agritourism, find things around you, whether you have a campground or a farm, that can accent what you have already at your place. I mean, for us, we have Davy Crockett birthplace is only 2 miles from us. So we're steeped in history. Andrew Johnson, the first president ever impeached, is only about 9 or 10 miles from us, his home. So there's a lot of things that you can go to in addition to what you have, or you can be the destination. But people need to look for those opportunities to partner with other organizations and activities and places around them.
It's a good point. You don't have to do it all by yourself. I mean, go out and talk to local businesses, and that can add that value too. So yeah, it's definitely good advice.
Yeah, and I think we talked a little bit about that when we were doing our winery discussion a couple weeks ago, just about the fact that, I mean, you may not have a winery at your park, but if you have, 5 to 10, or, if you have a winery down the road, then, that's a big deal right now. People love to do wine tastings and tours and things like that. So there's definitely ways to do partnerships to where you can offer your campground owner campers that experience, maybe through a partnership with a winery or like what we're talking about here today with a local farm or something.
So let's talk about this for a second. I'm curious, right? Because obviously you guys both have experience with farms in general, all different kinds. We're talking about llamas, of course, to begin with, but all different kinds of animals and experiences. So if you're talking to the campground owners who are watching our show right now, what are some things that you think that they could incorporate into their campground? First, let's start, like, what can I do without partnering with a local attraction? Whether that's chickens or goats or...
I would add a chicken coop. I would add chickens. I mean, those are the easiest. They're the easiest to raise. They're the least expensive. Everybody loves to feed chickens. You see in the movies with everybody scattering scratch. And now you get to do it. And then you get to go collect the eggs. And I got to tell you, for collecting eggs, it's like Easter for people who've never done it. And the parents are almost pushing the kids out of the way. So I would say chickens would be first. Goats would probably be second because they're so personable. Although I don't know, maybe llamas are, I'm not as familiar with llamas, but goats are easy. You can get Nigerian dwarfs. You just don't want to let them get loose into your flower beds or into your garden or your fruit trees.
I agree with her 100%. One of the favorite things here has been the garden. We build a 30 by 60 box garden, and we use 100% llama compost in it. And we never have to use any type of pesticides or fertilizer. It's all organic. So, and that's been even though most people don't pick from it, they get to go out and experience it and enjoy it and just walking through between the beds.
Yeah, I know. It also offers, because we've been hearing a lot about road schooling and people doing more like schooling from RVs and stuff this past fall. And I guess, that kind of offers opportunities too there as far as being able to let those types of RVers come in and kind of, they can look at your garden and kind of educate their kids and look at the animals. So
So then I should also point out, because we did do a lot of schooling groups, families mostly this fall, you need to have good Wi-Fi. And I know that's not a farming thing, but on any campground or wherever you are, if you're going to be attracting those kinds of groups, good Wi-Fi is a huge asset.
It is. It is. We're fortunate. We have 250 megabits coming in with 5 access points. So we spent the money on the Wi-Fi because I have so many workers that because of COVID and other things, they travel now and they work from their camper.
And I don't think that's going to change. And I don't think that's going to change.
No,
I think
correct.
that COVID has introduced that as a new format. So, doing classes with kids, you can do that remotely. And we don't have very good cell phone service here. So as long as people know that they have access to something like Wi-Fi, then they're perfectly happy.
So the interesting part is, and I don't want to get too far off topic, but we do have an hour to fill here, right? So we got to talk about some weird things. I like Wi-Fi. You're talking about Wi-Fi specifically. I had a client call me last week and say she was getting quotes for like $80,000 on the high end to build out a Wi-Fi system at her park.
No.
And obviously there's prices that were lower, right? But if she wanted the top tier was premium, $80,000. But the point is I told her, like, if you look at, because we do marketing, right? And so I hand over reviews and things like that. Our company does, monitoring your reputation, stuff like that. And so we were looking through our reviews, and they weren't that many who were complaining about our Wi-Fi. There weren't too many. Once in a while, people would say, like, I wish you had faster speeds or stuff like that. But it's not a huge problem, right? And so I said, hold off a little bit, because what you've got coming down the pipe is, you're talking about cell phone coverage and stuff like that. Starlink is already got services. Do you guys know what Starlink is?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
okay.
We've got a farm that's got it up in Washington. Yeah.
So Elon Musk's SpaceX, it's a division of SpaceX. They're going to create a separate company. They're launching satellites into space. It's when they get this thing going, which is going to be like, it's already going. As Scotty just said, there's already people who are beta testing it. But when it gets really going, it's going to blanket the entire Earth, like the Sahara Desert and everywhere else, with really fast internet. And all of a sudden, that infrastructure that you could have spent anywhere between $20,000 to $80,000 to build out for Wi-Fi, you stick a satellite up and offer your campers the same kind of service. And so I told her to hold off for now, unless she starts getting a lot of backlash from that Wi-Fi. And obviously, there's probably some companies in the industry who aren't too happy with me telling you that live on the Woodall Show. But it is what it is, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it, but it's something to consider when you're right?
It's the same thing with cable. When we first opened up 3 years ago, our local cable company tried their best to put, cable to every spot, but the price was exorbitant. And plus, then I'd be paying a huge amount per month just to have it. And I told them, I said, that's a dying infrastructure, underground cable.
And it's different if you're developing a park and the trench is already open and you can just lay the cable on top of everything else. But when you got to redo it and dig it from scratch, absolutely.
Do the llamas respond well to good Wi-Fi? Do they use the Wi-Fi at all? Tablets, anything?
Well, they're pretty tall, so usually they have good reception.
Damn good.
But I'll tell you how that works. So we have Wi-Fi out at our barn. And so if you want to talk about marketing, people will take pictures of themselves, videos, and they'll send it right from the barn out to the Facebook or out to their friends, out to their family. And so I'm sure Jerry, when he was mentioning all those selfies, I mean, talk about marketing. Know, anybody holding the baby lamb, how cute is that?
Right.
But then there's all kinds of creative ways you can do it, right? I mean, keep the guest engaged once they leave your property too. This is just my marketing brain working, right? Like, let them adopt a llama or something like that, or name it, or have a competition, and then they can follow the progress. You do YouTube videos. You can have a subscription service where they can have a day with the llama via YouTube Live or something, right?
Oh God, I need to be taking notes. Okay.
I am. I'm sure I'm looking over.
Right? I mean, why just focus on just the campgrounds day? So this is stuff that people create memories with, and they can grow up with the llama for 10 years.
Yeah. Well, and then they come back, and then you just have to, that's the one thing Jerry and I you have to deal with, because I have guests that have come back 8, 9, 10 years. So I get to see children, babies until they're grown up. Mm-hmm. But the question always is from the parents, is so-and-so still alive? The name of the animal, is that animal still alive? And it's, Hopefully, yes, but it isn't always going to be. Livestock doesn't live as long as.
Well,
Or you
that's
sold them.
right? We've all seen the movie where the parent kills the turtle and goes and buys a new one from the pet store.
Oh my God.
It's possible that they could live forever. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But
Well, Scotty can get by with that because most of your sheep look alike. Every llama is different.
Yeah.
Well, it's different to you, but are people really going to notice the difference if they don't know about llamas?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, it's a good point. Yeah. I mean, yeah. If you point out to somebody, so look, there's the lambs and then there's the grown-ups, they can't tell a difference. So it takes a little while.
Since we're talking about campers, now we do have host campers, and we also have work campers that stay on our farm. And it's the first time we did work campers was this fall in October, and we worked. I started out with less benefits, but when I say benefits, I'm talking about they worked so many hours for their spot, but they were so good. It's a young couple. They were so good. They were going to stay till April. Now they're going to stay all summer. I decided just to give them their entire spot, electricity, water, sewer, Wi-Fi, all free. Then I'll pay them for that 15 hours we'd agreed with earlier. But it's worth it that way because I'm getting old. I can't clean barns like I used to. But they feed and get involved with the llamas, and they take care of the chickens. So it's nice to have that.
yeah. I mean, I know a lot of campground owners are looking at work campers. I guess, did you have a pretty good experience finding them and hiring them?
It was just truly it was happen chance. Because what happened was they contacted me. They saw our campground and they really liked the idea and wanted to stay here. So I told them, I said, well, I haven't had any work campers before. However, I need some references. Of course, I'm a retired high school principal. I've hired countless people. So I always look at references. So, they were at other campgrounds and I got some excellent references on them, and they just are awesome. I don't want them to ever leave.
Well, and I should say there's an organization out there called WWOOF,
Yes.
WWOOF, which is where you can find people, but they don't necessarily come with their RV or their camper. So
Right.
that's the issue. But
And we are a wolfing farm, by the way. We've had over 20 wolfers on our farm.
yeah.
And that works out great. The only bad thing about that is just as soon as you get them trained, it's time for them to leave.
Yeah.
Comment here from TJ Johnson. I just want to bring up on the screen. We're going to put it there. It says we have chickens and mini goats that the kids can feed, but we also offer guided foraging walks, PNW maple syrup classes. We partner with other folks in the area. Once COVID slows down, we plan to partner with local chocolate manufacturer, wineries, and other things that it won't fit on the screen. So
awesome.
The maple syrup is interesting. That's kind of a farming thing. My son and I did maple syruping for the first time this last year. We tapped about 8 trees or whatever and did the whole process. We didn't get a ton of maple syrup, but if campground owners, we typically have a lot of trees, and if you have a lot of maple trees and you have the time and the desire to do so, I mean, that's kind of a neat little activity for campers too. So
my grandfather on my dad's side used to produce maple syrup in a tiny town in New York State. So yeah.
Yeah, so a number of our New England, Mid-Atlantic farms actually offer maple syruping, either tapping, or a few of them show how you cook it down and make it into syrup. And then I think they sell their own syrup as well. Yeah, it's interesting. It depends on what part of the country you're in as to kind of some of the classes or the things that people offer. Canning, spinning, like Jerry said, and just different kinds of, this is how we do it on the farm, and then you get to go home with something. So it's always fun. I mean, canning, if you do jelly or something, so you're not going to kill somebody, you want to do the
Scotty, do you do online?
I'm sorry. Do you feel like people
stores?
die with getting maple syrup out of trees, or is that a thing?
So yeah, you tap the tree, but you have to cook it down to make it syrup.
Yeah.
Right?
How do you die from that?
Oh, you wouldn't necessarily die from maple syrup, but if you were teaching somebody to can something else, you could, green beans, if you didn't do it right. So maybe making jelly, it's pretty hard to kill somebody.
Wait, how do green beans kill you? I'm fascinated.
Oh,
pressure cooking.
If it's not canned properly, and so
it can go bad.
It can go bad.
It's just dangerous.
Scotty, do you do online store? That's something that we really want to expand on. Is all the things we have to sell on the farm. We won't start doing it online. We haven't done that yet.
I have it associated with my reservation system, but I don't push it because shipping always costs so much, and I can't compete with Amazon, and everybody's used to free shipping these days.
That's
right.
You can get a fulfillment center who will ship it for you.
Or I could get a fulfillment center to ship it for me. I could do that.
It'll save you a ton of money.
Yeah. So I just haven't gotten into that. I mean, actually the farming part takes a lot of time. Then hosting guests takes a lot of time. And so, but you're absolutely right. We could do that, especially for things like low season, usually winter, late fall, things like that.
But that's the idea, is that you set it up once and it's a hassle, but then once you're done, the fulfillment center takes the time off your hands and you got more revenue.
Well, that's true. That's true. I have a book I sell online through Amazon. But
TJ Johnson mentioned he did pickles with campers, which pickles is a lot of fun.
Pickles is and you won't kill anybody with pickles either.
No.
We can imagine ways.
We can imagine ways to kill people with pickles.
Not that I'm advocating for it. I'm just saying it could be dangerous.
Yeah.
But
Wi-Fi. Don't put very hot peppers in your garden. So people will actually throw them in their mouth, and it's awful.
Yeah.
Well, no. So that's actually a good strategy, because then you can sell milk.
Yeah, that's what they did. They drank milk all afternoon trying to get rid of that.
Yeah. You can sell milk at a premium price then.
$15 a half gallon.
Yeah. But just kind of back to the Wi-Fi thing, I liked the marketing aspect of having people take pictures. But I guess, Brian, can you speak to this a little bit? Is it beneficial for campground owners to have like certain hashtags and stuff in place for when people do pictures to post that kind of stuff?
I mean, a little bit on Instagram and stuff, but it'll help. Yeah. It'll help people discover. But and I don't know, maybe I'm just an outlier, right? This is my user experience person, right? People ask me all the time, do I use hashtags on Facebook? I don't know of anybody who clicks on a hashtag on Facebook and scrolls through a bunch of posts to look at all I don't. On Instagram, yes, but not on Facebook.
I think it helps some of the maybe the campground owners maybe organize their stuff a little better if they use hashtags. I don't know.
But the idea is you need to piggyback off of a hashtag that already exists. Don't create your own hashtag like your park name, because then it's the same thing as the apps that you're creating for your campground, right? They do a good service. They're useful. They help people save time, all that kind of stuff. But you got to get people to download them. You got to get people to use your hashtag. So how much effort are you putting in to this is my hashtag to get the people who are looking at other hashtags to use yours? So balance, right? Don't overwork yourself. Use something that already exists and see if you can attract attention if you're going to do it that way.
Farm life is a good one. Or goats of Instagram, sheep of Instagram, llamas of Instagram. I mean,
people overthink a lot of this stuff, and really it's just providing value. You're not going to get attention on your Instagram for whatever you post if you're not providing something interesting that people want to see. If you're just trying to sell, if you're trying to do all that kind of stuff. So if it's something cool, if it's llamas and they're doing something funny or great or amazing or something that people haven't seen before, then people are going to find you no matter what, whether you use a hashtag or not.
It's interesting. We have a farm actually in Kansas. And so he has every guest stands in front of their old farmhouse and they hold a pitchfork and they do the old picture.
Green Acres.
Well, it's not Green Acres. What is it? With the man and the woman with the pitchfork.
Yeah.
Anyway, they do that image. And so they have every guest do that. And so then that's a picture that they have to take home. So I thought, Brian, you were going to go, or Ben, do you set up backgrounds that people have so that they can have their special photo spot, in front of the barn or with the whatever, but so he does that and his guests love it. And then they share it all over the place. So.
Yeah, the American Gothic scene.
American Gothic, thank you.
But that's interesting too. I think campgrounds, that don't have a farm theme have some of those cutouts and stuff that they do too. We're starting to see more of those pop up. I guess you also mentioned chickens as maybe an easy animal to start with, an easier animal, or goats. I guess for people who aren't familiar with chickens, I guess, how hard are those to manage, I guess, as a campground owner? How hard would...
They're easy. The one thing you have to do if you get a variety of chickens, which means that they lay different colored eggs, is you need to educate your guests that the eggs aren't rotten if they're blue. That's just the color of the egg. And also, if you are letting your chickens free range and they're not all cooped up, that when they go to crack the egg and the yolk is really orangey yellow, that's actually what they're supposed to look like. Please don't throw it out. It's not rotten. That's the biggest issue we've had with eggs is the different colors.
Bleached white normally out of the chicken.
And hardness they're usually more nutritious.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah. That's what I buy from the store. Yeah.
They actually have a breed of chickens called Easter eggers or something, right? Where they have multicolored. Yeah. Where they have multicolored eggs.
Yeah,
so
they're green and blue. Yep. No, so but chickens are relatively easy. They don't live that long. But that's fine. And all you have to do is lock them up at night so they don't get eaten by skunks, raccoons, or foxes.
And make sure your campers have dogs on a lead.
Well, there are other benefits to all this too, right? Is it roosters or hens? Testing my memory. One of them is pest control, right?
Both.
And then ducks. Ducks will eat the slugs. You have ducks around. Yeah. And the one thing with chickens is if you are letting them free range, then you don't want to let them into your garden or into your flower boxes because they'll rip those up. But other than that, you can always keep them in a chicken yard. Yeah. Especially if you got dogs that are running around.
And chicken coops don't take up too much space either. No. You can get quite a few chickens in a smallish area. You got to give them plenty of room, but I think it's like 2 to 4 feet per. What?
Do you have experience with this?
Yeah, I've raised chickens. I had a chicken coop before we moved, and we're actually going to be getting more chickens here this spring. So
making sure we're giving people factual information based on real world experience. That's all. We have a high journalism bar to set up the show.
We have a hard journal. Yeah.
One other thing I'd like to mention, it's good if your campground is to have events on your farm or on your camp or in your campground. We do a thing in the fall called Spooky Llama Trails and Tales. And it's a major event for our local people also. And it's based on storytelling. We actually have a Native American Indian group that stays 2 weekends on our farm. They have a huge 18-foot teepee. They do Native American stories. We do a hay ride through the woods. We'll have scenes. Like one of the scenes is, and we have live people in the woods. Now, this is designed for young children and family. We actually have church groups that come to this. And so it's not real scary. It's more cutesy, spooky. Like we have the Sanderson sisters from Hocus Pocus that if you've ever seen the movie Hocus Pocus, you got kids, you've seen that movie. And so my wife and a couple others dress up as the Sanderson sisters, and they've got a cauldron, and the wagon drives by, the tractor and wagon drives by, and we stop. And then, of course, the witches come up and they poke the kids and say, "Ooh, that looks tender." Just cute little things. We have dancing zombies in a graveyard. They come out. And I have speakers on the wagons so that they can hear the scary music, or we play Michael Jackson's Thriller when the zombies come out of the graveyard and they do a flash mob dance.
Nice.
So that's every fall. We have about a couple thousand people, come to it. It's great.
But you're talking
and then the campers just walk over to it. So our campground's full those 2 weekends for people coming to see, to do that. And we partner with the local Ruatan, which is a nonprofit organization, and I give 60% of the proceeds to them.
But you're talking about ways to enhance the experience with part of what you already have with the llamas and stuff like that, but also with partnering with local organizations like the Native Americans you were bringing in, things like that.
Yeah.
just thinking outside the box. And those things can help you build your revenue, awareness, community relations, all those kinds of things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds fantastic. I'm gonna have to head down that way to check that out. So
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, so and kind of, well, not quite the same, but we do farm tours, so you don't have to stay here. And so again, I bet Jerry probably has some tours where you can come in and see the llama. Do you do that? Maybe come and see the
We do
llamas
outside. Well, we do outside tours. Now, if you're a camper, it's free. We charge for outside folks, and we have people come, around 100 miles away sometimes to come to. They purchase llama treks, storytelling llama hikes.
Exactly.
So we do it outside and inside.
Yeah. So we do tours like that, and we do school tours, and then we did do this open barn day because our lambs are in the spring. Everybody wants to see baby lambs, and then we let people just stay on site for the day and have picnics and things like that. But it actually, quite honestly, it got too crowded. It got to be more than we really could handle. We have a creek that goes through our property. And so my husband was just looking at the liability involved, letting people walk free around the farm without not on a tour. And so,
which is why you can do Zoom meetings and charge $5 for those, and then they can upgrade to an in-person package you can control for
exactly.
$5.
That's a good point. Airbnb has Airbnb experiences that they're doing that now, and we already do Airbnb here on the farm, so we're thinking about adding that.
So we do virtual tours. I wish I had thought of it before COVID, but I didn't. And then once COVID hit, so we do virtual tours for families, parties, schools, and we're doing this live stream animal event for Portland State University next week, where they just want us to have the camera in the barn and just for 2 hours do a live stream.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Well, but that's what you could do. Like have a 24/7 live stream of your llamas and charge people a monthly membership fee to access it.
Yeah, exactly. I looked into the price of that. That's actually, it can be a little expensive if you're doing a live stream that's 24/7. But
Well, it depends on if if you pay for your bandwidth, yes.
yeah, right.
If you have unlimited bandwidth, I don't know. I guess I have unlimited bandwidth. So.
they do. They have a peregrine hawk or whatever. I forget what it's called. They have a nest in South Bend, Indiana, not too far from where we live, and they literally have I believe it's a 24/7 cam on that bird's nest, and people go nuts over that thing. I mean, just watching the bird come in, and in the spring when it has babies and whatever. So it's, I know different zoos do things like that too.
And it's funny, every spring we look into it for lambing, and it gets less expensive each year. So we just haven't done it yet.
On how much you can scale it again, because if you're doing a live show, like this can all go all over the world.
Yeah.
Like you can go to countries and cities that have never even seen llamas before, or sheep or whatever else.
Yeah.
So the ability for you to scale that, regardless of how much it costs, you just have to do good marketing.
Yeah.
And price it right.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and then
but yeah, so I mean, a lot of neat ideas. I had a thought, but I lost my train of thought. I noticed TJ Johnson mentioned he does TikTok videos now, which is a little different experience than Facebook or Instagram. I don't have a lot of experience with TikTok. I don't know what Brian does. Brian may be a big TikToker. Who knows?
I'm not big on social media personally at all. But the thing, TikTok's a great way to reach, obviously, a younger audience. And so, if you're doing things that you want to get creative with llamas and sheep and reaching younger kids and families and stuff like that, then you can do that. You got to have a personality to do it. But then I would also, again, remember that just like we tell clients on Facebook and Instagram and everywhere else, it's not always about likes and views. It's about bookings and money. And so I don't care if 1 million people like your Facebook post that not a single person bought. Just wasted your time. So,
I think you guys mentioned the insurance just a little bit. I think, we might have to think about getting an insurance person on here every week, because I think every week we do a topic, insurance always comes up. But I guess, I don't know, I guess, Jerry, does, this impact your insurance for the campground at all with all the animals and the different activities?
What I did, I got an umbrella that includes, visits on the farm and the campground. It's all one. And so it's covered under that. And that was the number one thing I wanted to make sure I had was an insurance policy.
Yeah, and I imagine different areas might have different rules as far as animals go. I mean, a lot of campgrounds may be out in what we would call like a country area, but there's also a lot of campgrounds in like a city type setting that maybe can't have chickens or animal, or maybe they have to contract with a local farm or something to bring in animals. They can't actually raise them at the campground.
It's back to check your zoning.
I want to talk to an insurance person about segmenting like your campground into different businesses. So remember how we had that insurance guy on where he was talking about how like if you have somebody come in to rent kayaks and you lease the area to them, then you're not responsible for the insurance they are. So is it possible to segment a campground and then like you could have different animals in different sections, some of which are less dangerous and some of which are more dangerous? And then you could have each LLC cover their own, like the rate would be higher, right? For the portion where you put bears and tigers. And
I don't know that insurance companies see different animals as different kind of danger. They have a hard time figuring it out to start with. Well, yeah, I guess it would depend on what you've got. You'll find though, so most campgrounds that are going to be on a farm, there's a farm policy that, is protecting you anyway in case my sheep get out into the road and somebody kills them or they kill somebody else because they have an accident. So I'm covered that way. But then I have a whole separate business liability policy, which is trip and fall insurance, basically, for people to be on the farm. That's in addition. And then I do have what Jerry has. I have an umbrella on top of all of it. But quite honestly, our farms a lot of times have a hard time getting insurance because insurance companies just do not understand what agritourism is. They don't
understand what campgrounds are.
Yeah, and so they don't want to cover you because all of a sudden they're like, well, we don't know what kind of loss you're going to have. And I'm like, we try not to run over anybody with our tractor. We really, really,
Is that a thing?
Is what a thing?
Does a sheep how often does a sheep kill someone? Is that a thing?
Well, if it got out in the road and you had a car accident because of it, and turned your car over,
is it really like?
Yes,
you could blame the car accident and all kinds of different things, right? How are you going to actually determine that the sheep was liable? You could have been asleep at the wheel. You could have had too many to drink. It could be anything. It could have just been dark.
But you just
most of the people writing the policies don't know anything about a farm. We found an old sign in their shearing room. We found an old sign in the antique store and it says the beauty shop. So I bought it, hung it up over our shearing room because that's where we, do the beauty shop for the llamas. Well, when the guy came to take pictures of everything, to look at all the stuff that we have, I had to take it down because he said somebody from New York City is probably doing the figuring whether they're going to insure you or not, and they don't have if you've got a beauty shop, that's another whole animal. That's not a farm. So, just weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
I posted a story that kind of made headlines this last week about here in Indiana, they had cows break loose. Whole herd went down the highway. But, I guess if you have cows, you'd have to worry about that.
Well, cows, I can see like cows causing some damage.
But inside in the outdoor hospitality industry, we are lucky to have like Levitt Insurance, K&K, Marshall and Sterling, I think that are a little bit more in tune to the campground industry. So maybe they would be more useful for this agritourism segment too, because they kind of understand the hospitality segment a little bit better than maybe some of the other companies that aren't as associated with the hospitality.
Some states help you out on agritourism. They try to minimize the liability for farms that do agritourism.
Yeah, so we have a big sign. So Oregon's got a bill, Tennessee does as well. Yeah. And so we just have to have those signs posted. It looks really scary when you drive in our driveway and you park and you see this huge sign that says, we're not liable for any agritourism activity. But
I think it's possible for you to resell like travel insurance policies to individual people and require that they have them or something that you could make a profit off of? I don't know really.
And that'd be difficult.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Or other people would do it, and I wouldn't be the first one that was saying it, right? But it's an interest. Like I mean, I don't know, because they cover medical and all that kind of stuff, and so.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting on the cost side if anybody would want to spend the money to buy it.
So we do have some we have some farms that do that down in Texas. She's talked about it before. She tells people you need to get travel insurance before you come. But I don't know. I'm not sure travel insurance would cover you getting bit by a whatever.
Donkey.
Well, by a donkey, I was going to say.
It wouldn't cover the act, but it would cover the medical care costs that came as a result of that. And so I wonder if what I'm saying is I wonder if you as the accommodation could partner with a travel insurance company to provide blanket coverage, like kind of like resell like X number of, I have 200 sites at my campground. So I'm going to offer 200 different insurance policies. What's the bulk rate for that? And then I can resell it to my campers, right? And cover it.
Yeah. I think most campers wouldn't pay for it.
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
How much money do you think Delta makes from that? Like, add insurance at the bottom when you're booking a flight. Like, people will just click it because they're scared, or it's on by default, or whatever, right? Yeah. You might be surprised how many people would buy it. I mean, not for like $30, but for $5-10.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want people thinking that they could then just go and claim stuff. I mean,
that's concern I had, Scotty, is you don't even want to mention insurance or liability, although it's always out there.
Yeah. That's why we take people. So when people come to our farm, I call it the danger tour. I take them on a tour around the farm. I point out all the things that are dangerous. Don't fall out of the hayloft. There's a creek. Here's the animals. This is how you have to be around them. And I joke about it, but I say this is the danger tour because I want them to be aware so that if anything happens, and things do happen, then they go, oh yeah, she told us about that. So I'm knocking on wood here. So far we've been, people understand. Yeah.
And I think from a liability, we've had Christine Taylor on here from the Towney law firm, and I know she's written for us at Woodall's before. And I think from the liability side, a tour like that really helps quite a bit too. You have them sign waivers, and then you take them on a tour like that. And when if you do get sued and you go to court, you can be like, hey, we had them sign the waivers. We read that, they read them. We took them on an actual tour. I think that looks pretty good. That would look pretty good. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but it can't hurt anything. So.
Well, and I've also discovered, I don't know if Jerry's discovered this, that accidents happen in the first 30 minutes that people are here. And I think it's because the ground is different. Everything is different from what they're used to. And so if you can get them through that first 30 minutes, then you're usually okay.
All that kind of stuff. Yeah.
They want to wear high heels to a farm.
Yeah.
You can also just try to scare them, right? Because if they're scared, then they're going to pay attention and be more alert to their surroundings too. Like, I don't know. I mean, you could get a nice stock image of this super cute young kid and frame it and put it on the wagon that you drive people around on and just say in loving memory of. And when they ask,
my God.
Direct TV commercials, right? Why you should not get cable or something, instead get Direct TV, and they do all these like series of like what happened, and it's so ridiculous. So this kid fell off the wagon and he got bit by a chicken and it got infected and he had his arm amputated and then he lost too much blood. And
then Jerry and I would never get anybody out to our farms.
No.
We don't want to scare them. We want to show them that their great grandparents grew up on these farms and everybody did okay. And this is
but they did okay because they paid attention. I'm just saying.
But
okay, Ben, save us here.
I think the important thing to acknowledge. I think the important thing to acknowledge is that you're probably, more than likely not going to have an incident, but it's important to be prepared for any, for these incidents, and that's where the insurance comes in. And
Yeah.
So we can move away from the bad incidents at the farm.
Yeah.
Don't happen. That's the idea. We're joking about it because it's not realistic. Like it doesn't happen frequently enough to worry about it. So
yeah. And a lot of we're not talking about like tigers and lions. The llamas for the most part are pretty friendly. I've been around goats a lot. I mean, they can get a little bitey. But you just have to be aware of that. They can kick too sometimes. I've been kicked by a cow before. That wasn't very much fun. So you just, you're around animals, so you have to be aware of your surroundings and understand that they're animals and they don't know what you're doing and they do weird things sometimes.
Well, that's what Jerry's talking about with the high heels wearing them to a farm. Like you just have to be aware of where you're going and what your surroundings are and educate yourself a little bit. Spend 5 minutes and Google like what it's like to walk on a farm and like read a paragraph, and then you'll know like 95% more than everybody else does.
Well, we tell people coming to the farm that closed-toed shoes. I mean, if you're going to go into the chicken yard and you have painted toenails, you might find that you've got some chickens tapping at your toenails.
And the hard thing is people don't read. Like I went axe throwing a couple years ago, and they said the same thing: wear closed-toed shoes. You wouldn't believe the people that showed up in sandals. Like you're axe throwing. Like you should know that without me telling you, but I mean, people don't read the policies and be aware of that stuff. So.
And, I would say for your campgrounds that are maybe thinking of getting chickens, you don't need a rooster, right? You don't need a rooster to get eggs. Yeah. And some roosters are mean. So it's nice having a rooster. We use it to protect our flock. But I have nice roosters. And I had a mean one. I got rid of them,
We had, we had 2 roosters and a bunch of hens. And it got to the point where the roosters were just being mean to the hens. And we had to take the roosters out of the equation because you can't you don't want them being mean to you. They get pretty big, and they can be mean to you, and then they can be mean to the hens, and that's not a good situation. And plus, they make a lot of noise. Sometimes roosters can make lots of noise. So.
I like that. I like that sound. I have been told recently our rooster starts crowing at 4 a.m. though.
It just depends on the person. So, but I really like goats. I wouldn't mind having a few goats, which we can have a goat. I live in a city, but we can actually have a goat in the city. There's a person a couple blocks away from us that has a goat, and they're pretty neat animals. So too.
Your purpose would be for milk or why?
Yeah, milk, companionship. I mean, they're neat. They're just friendly animals. So, not necessarily to eat or anything, although you can eat a goat. So, it looks like we lost Jerry though. So, unfortunately, we're getting near the end anyways. I don't know if I have any more comments on the farm thing. I guess, Brian, did you have any more comments or thoughts or ideas?
I think the idea is again, we just to wrap it up, right? We're talking about a niche market. We're talking about ways that you can appeal both from a farm standpoint if you're adding campgrounds, but also campgrounds if you're adding farm experiences. And just going after that niche market, setting yourself apart, giving yourself a differentiator that can not only attract like local campers who you might attract as a normal campground, right, or what people expect, but also broaden your reach, like Jerry was saying to that people in Texas who came up. And so it just becomes a way for you to increase your revenue, offer new things, and provide great experiences to people.
Yeah. And I mean, I think as, we get more into the glamping thing's not going away, and I don't think the unique experience thing is going to go away. So if you're a campground owner, you can have a lot of amenities and things, which is great, but it's also great to find ways to build in those unique experiences. I know we had like Greg Emmert from the KOA in Ohio. I think he recently sold his park, but he was giving nature tours, just from around the park. They had, and that's just a way to engage people and just finding ways to offer those unique experiences. I think is going to be really important because that's what people are looking for. So
well, the sky's the limit too. So just because you talked to Scotty and she did a couple other things at her park doesn't mean that you can't do those and something else, or level up, or like we were talking to Scotty about memberships and video calls and things like that you could use to enhance your revenue. Like for how many years there's been these lodges in Africa, right, where you can go stay on these luxury things and they're open on one side and you can wake up with a giraffe head in your room.
Yeah.
Like there's all kinds of things and experiences you can provide to people if you're willing to think outside the box. So.
Yeah.
And what's really surprising to me is, for the northern tier campgrounds that close up shop right now because of the cold, we don't really, there are some campgrounds that do a really good job of staying engaged throughout the winter, but I would say the majority of them maybe do 1 or 2 Facebook posts for the 4 to 5 months that they're closed. And that's it. I think there's just a tremendous opportunity for something like this, to help stay engaged throughout the winter, do more than 1 or 2 Facebook posts for a 4-month period, do videos of animals and the amenities that you have and keep people engaged even though you're closed. Keep your park up front in their memory, in their mind.
The problem with that, Ben, is that people can't tie it to actual reservations. And it's the truth, right? So like a lot of campground owners, me included, I don't use my social media. I wouldn't be on Facebook if it wasn't for my business, to be perfectly honest. Like I'll call somebody, I'll talk to them in person. I prefer to do that way. But if they knew beyond a shadow of doubt that by devoting X number of hours to something they don't love or don't like, Facebook or whatever else, a week, generated X revenue, and they could see that in QuickBooks and see that in their analytics reports, then they do it. But they don't know. Right now it's throwing it out there and you get likes, but how much revenue does that lead to? They don't know that for sure.
So, but we have a link where you can make reservations off of our Facebook page.
Right.
So that's what you mean, right?
Do you know exactly, yeah. Do you know exactly how many reservations come from that link on Facebook?
I see what you mean.
That's what I'm saying, right.
Got it. Okay.
And there are ways you can track that.
Actually, I do know that through Google Analytics. Yeah. I do know that because then I look at my website and I see how many people came to my website. Where did they come from? So, yeah, apologies. I do know.
Just because they made it to your website from Facebook, do you know that they actually created a transaction, made a booking? Because you can track that, but it's not as easy to set up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those kinds of things, right?
Yeah. But I think if you can keep in touch with a newsletter through the winter, if you're closed during the winter, just this is what we're doing this is what we're doing at the park this winter. This is what we're fixing. This is what we're adding. So come book with us next. Yeah. Or our bookings are filling up. That's our newsletter going out right now. Hey, if you were sitting on your hands waiting to think you were going to book this spring and summer, you better get your acting gear because we don't have a lot of spaces left.
Well, so here's my thing too, Scotty, and I'll tell you, and I'm not going to pick on you, but I'm just going to give you an example, right? Me as a marketing person, all I care about is providing value and then also mentioning that they're filling up fast. Right. And so what I would do is I'd build a newsletter that talked about llamas or sheep and all kinds of cool facts about them and what Dolly the sheep did last week or something like that, and have a video and then at the top it can say book now or whatever else. People want the value. They'll book if you give them value. You don't have to say book all the time.
Yeah. So I see Jerry made it back.
I made it back.
You made it back. Well, I think
do we have anything else?
Yeah, I think we're pretty much wrapping up. Next week I believe we're gonna talk a little bit about the NPS. We're gonna take a look at. I read an interesting article about the size of national park sites and how it may be limiting to larger RVs. And we were just going to take a look at maybe that issue and maybe some of the other issues that campers face when they
specific to the national park service, right?
Yeah. So
when you say NPS, I think Net Promoter Score from marketing. So
so that should be a pretty interesting show. So that's next Monday at 11. So thanks everyone for joining us this week. And thanks Jerry and Scotty for taking time out of your day to join us.
Sure.
Thank you for inviting us.
We're available on a podcast too. So if you're catching this at the end and you're listening to me, then you're probably already listening as a podcast, or you've seen the show on video and you no longer need to do so. So I've got to get better at introducing this in the beginning, Ben. But we are on a podcast as well, Spotify, iTunes, Google, iHeartRadio now, Ben, too.
Oh boy. And maybe Pandora at some point. Maybe.
I don't know. They're taking forever. I can't help it. So
I know. So
thank you guys. Really appreciate you joining us. We'll see everybody next week, and good luck with all of your respective businesses into the future.
Thank you so much.
Very much. Thanks for the invite.
Have a good week. Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.